The November rain came down in sheets, turning the forest floor into a slick maze of mud and fallen pine needles. 6-year-old Lily Grace Hartwell pressed herself against the trunk of an ancient oak, her small body shaking, not from the cold, but from fear. "Please, God," she whispered, clutching her mother's torn sweater to her chest, "please send someone." Behind her, 3 miles back through the darkening woods, was the house where Vincent had screamed at her to get out. Out, like she was trash, like she was nothing. Her ankle throbbed where she'd twisted it running. The pain was white hot, shooting up her leg with every breath. That's when she heard it. A whimper. Soft. Desperate. Lily's head snapped up. Through the rain and gathering dusk, a pair of amber eyes watched her from beneath a fallen log. A puppy. No, a German shepherd. Muddy. Shaking. Alone. Just like her. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. The dog crawled out from under the log, its fur matted with mud and rain. It couldn't have been more than 4 months old, all oversized paws and floppy ears, but something in its eyes looked ancient. Knowing, Lily forgot her pain for a moment. "Hey, puppy," she whispered, extending one small hand. "Are you lost too?" The German shepherd pup tilted its head, studying her with an intensity that seemed almost human. Then, slowly, it limped forward. Lily noticed the torn military collar around its neck, the metal tag catching what little light remained in the dying day. Her fingers brushed the tag. "Duke," she read aloud, squinting at the worn engraving. "K9 unit." Duke pressed his cold nose against her palm, and something inside Lily's chest cracked open. The tears she'd been holding back since her mother's funeral, since Vincent's screaming, since everything fell apart, came flooding out in great, gasping sobs. "I don't have anywhere to go," she cried, burying her face in Duke's wet fur. "Mommy's gone and Vincent doesn't want me, and I'm so scared and my ankle hurts and—" Duke's whimper cut through her words. He pulled back, looking at her ankle, then at the darkening forest, then back at her face. His ears perked up suddenly, swiveling toward something Lily couldn't hear. Then he barked, sharp, urgent. "Shh," Lily hissed, remembering Vincent's threats. What if he'd followed her? What if he was out here looking for her, not to bring her home, but to— Duke barked again, louder this time. He grabbed the sleeve of her mother's sweater between his teeth and tugged. "Stop! You'll tear it!" But Duke wouldn't stop. He pulled harder, his amber eyes locked on hers with desperate purpose. Then he released her sleeve and ran 3 steps into the trees before stopping, looking back at her expectantly. "I can't walk," Lily said, fresh tears streaming down her face. "My ankle!" Duke ran back to her, circling behind her. He nudged her back with his nose, surprisingly strong for such a young dog. When she didn't move, he did it again. Harder. Lily understood. He wanted her to crawl. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." She got on her hands and one good knee, keeping her injured ankle off the ground. Every movement sent lightning bolts of agony through her leg, but Duke stayed right beside her, matching her pace. Whenever she stopped to cry, he licked her face. Whenever she wanted to give up, he nudged her forward. The forest grew darker. The rain grew colder. And still, they moved, girl and dog, through the Tennessee wilderness. Lily didn't know where Duke was leading her. She didn't know if anyone would find them before the night took them both, but for the first time since her mother died, she wasn't alone, and somehow that made all the difference. Benjamin Calloway stood in the center of his cabin, the weight of the pistol cold and familiar in his hand. 42 years old, 20 years in the Navy SEALs, 3 years since Jennifer and little Lily, his Lily, died in that intersection, 3 years of waking up every day wondering why he was still breathing. The cabin was silent except for the rain hammering the tin roof. He'd chosen this place specifically for its isolation, 5 miles from the nearest road, deep in the Tennessee woods where nobody would hear the shot, where nobody would find him for days, maybe weeks. It was better that way. Cleaner. Ben raised the pistol slowly, muscle memory guiding his hand to the perfect angle. His finger found the trigger. He'd done this motion thousands of times, at the range, in combat, in 30 different countries where the enemy had a face and a name. But the enemy now? The enemy was the face in the mirror. The man who'd made the call that got his whole team killed in Iraq. The man who hadn't been there when his wife and daughter needed him most. "I'm sorry, Jen," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm so damn sorry." His finger tightened on the trigger. And then, a bark. Distant, desperate. Echoing through the rain and darkness. Ben's hand froze. His training kicked in automatically. Threat assessment, directional awareness. The bark came from the northeast, maybe half a mile out. A dog. Young, by the sound of it. And something in that bark made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. That wasn't the bark of a dog chasing rabbits. That was a distress call. Ben lowered the pistol slowly. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Can't never could do nothing, son. Means you don't give up until you try." "One more mission?" Ben muttered. He could give himself that, couldn't he? One last mission, and then... The bark came again, closer now. More urgent. Ben shoved the pistol in his waistband, grabbed his heavy coat and tactical flashlight, and pushed out into the November night. The rain hit him like a wall, icy and relentless, but he'd trained in worse. His boots found purchase on the muddy slope behind his cabin as he moved toward the sound. The barking grew frantic now, mixed with something else. A whimper. No, a cry. A child's cry. Ben's heart, dead for 3 years, suddenly kicked into overdrive. He ran, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, rain streaming down his face. The PTSD that usually paralyzed him at unexpected sounds seemed to evaporate, replaced by pure instinct. The beam caught them 30 yards ahead, a small form hunched on the ground, and a German shepherd pup standing over her protectively. Ben slid to his knees beside them, his hands already doing the assessment his training demanded. Girl, approximately 6 years old, conscious but hypothermic. Injured ankle, possible fracture. Soaked to the bone, lips turning blue, and her eyes, God, those eyes, brown, like his daughter's, wide with fear and hope and desperate need. "It's okay," Ben heard himself say, his voice rough from disuse. "I've got you. You're safe now." The little girl looked up at him, rain and tears mixing on her face. "Are you an angel?" she whispered. "Duke said angels come when you're scared." Ben's throat closed. He carefully gathered her into his arms, feeling her small body shivering against his chest. "No, sweetheart," he managed. "I'm just a broken old soldier. But I'm here. And I'm not going to let anything happen to you." The German shepherd pup barked once, sharp and satisfied, then pressed against Ben's leg as they made their way back through the rain toward the cabin. Ben didn't know this child's name, didn't know where she came from or how she ended up in his woods, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. God had just given him a reason to put the gun down. And maybe, just maybe, a reason to keep living. The cabin's warmth hit Lily like a wave as Ben kicked the door shut behind them. He moved with practiced efficiency, setting her gently on the worn couch, wrapping her in blankets he pulled from a chest, his hands steady despite the tremor she could see running through them. Duke shook himself violently, spraying water across the hardwood floor, then jumped onto the couch and pressed his wet body against Lily's side. "Let me look at that ankle," Ben said, his voice gruff but gentle. He knelt before her, his calloused fingers surprisingly soft as they probed the swollen joint. Lily winced, but didn't cry out. "Sprained, not broken," he announced. "You're a tough kid. What's your name?" "Lily." She watched him carefully, this stranger with sad eyes and hands that knew how to help. "Lily Grace Hartwell." Ben's face went pale. His hands stilled on her ankle. "What?" Lily asked, suddenly afraid again. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Just—" Ben cleared his throat roughly. "My daughter's name was Lily. You remind me of her." "Was?" The word hung in the air between them like smoke. Ben stood abruptly, turning toward the small kitchen. "You hungry? I've got soup, probably." Lily's stomach answered for her with a loud growl. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. Yesterday? The day before? As Ben rummaged through cabinets, Lily studied the cabin. It was sparse, almost empty. A few pieces of furniture. No pictures on the walls. No decorations. Like someone was camping in their own home, ready to leave at any moment. Or someone waiting to disappear. "Where are your parents, Lily?" Ben asked, his back still turned as he heated soup on a propane stove. Lily's fingers tightened in Duke's fur. "Mommy died 2 weeks ago. Car accident." Ben's shoulders tensed. "I'm sorry. What about your father?" "I never met him. Mommy said he was a soldier, like you. He died before I was born." Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "His name was Jake, Captain Jake Hartwell." The pot Ben was holding clattered to the floor. He spun around, his face white as paper, eyes wide with something between shock and recognition. "What did you say?" "My daddy was Captain Jake Hartwell." "Why? Did you know him?" Ben's legs seemed to give out. He sank into a chair across from her, running both hands through his wet hair. "Jake Hartwell. Jesus Christ. Jake. You did know him?" Lily leaned forward, ignoring the pain in her ankle. "Tell me about him." Mommy never wanted to talk about him. She said it hurt too much. But Ben wasn't listening. His eyes had gone distant, unfocused. His breathing came faster, harsher. His hands began to shake. Not the subtle tremor from before, but violent trembling. Duke's ears went back. The puppy jumped off the couch and trotted to Ben, pressing his small body against the man's leg. "Mr. Ben?" Lily asked, frightened by the change in him. "Are you okay?" Ben's voice came out strangled. "Jake was my brother. Not by blood, but we were SEALs together. Same team. I was there when—" His breath hitched. "I was there when he died." Lily's world tilted. "You were with my daddy?" "Afghanistan, 6 years ago." Ben's eyes focused on her again, and Lily saw tears streaming down his weathered face. "He talked about you. All the time. He carried a photo of the ultrasound, said he was going to get home, going to marry your mama, going to be the best damn father." His voice broke completely. "He saved my life that day," Ben whispered. "We were pinned down. Ambush. Jake pushed me out of the way, took the bullet that had my name on it. Last thing he said was, 'Tell Grace I love her. Tell my baby girl her daddy tried to come home.'" Lily couldn't breathe. Her daddy had tried to come home. For her. "I never delivered the message," Ben continued, his voice raw with guilt. "I tried to find your mother, but I was too broken. Too messed up. I failed him. I failed you. I failed everyone." Duke whined softly, looking between them. Lily slid off the couch, crawling across the floor to where Ben sat. She wrapped her small arms around his neck. "You didn't fail," she whispered. "You found me." Daddy sent you to find me." And for the first time in 3 years, Benjamin Calloway let himself weep. Morning light filtered through the cabin windows, gentle and hesitant, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace inside. Lily woke to find herself wrapped in blankets on Ben's couch, Duke curled at her feet. The smell of coffee and something sweet, pancakes, drifted from the kitchen. Ben stood at the stove, his back to her, shoulders tense beneath his faded Marines t-shirt. When he turned, Lily saw the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. He hadn't slept. "Morning, kiddo," he said softly. "How's the ankle? Better?" Lily sat up carefully, testing her weight. The swelling had gone down some. "You made pancakes?" "Tried to. No promises they're edible." Ben set a plate in front of her, slightly burnt but shaped like a heart. "Listen, Lily, we need to talk about what happens next. I need to call someone. Social services, probably. Get you somewhere safe." The pancake turned to ash in Lily's mouth. "You mean foster care? You can't stay here." Ben's jaw worked. "I'm not fit to take care of anyone. I've got PTSD, nightmares. The VA says I'm a liability to myself, let alone a kid." "But you knew my daddy. That doesn't make me qualified to—" "Please." Lily's voice cracked. "Vincent will find me if you call. He'll say he's my guardian. Mommy married him 2 years ago. Legally, he's my stepfather." Ben froze. "Who's Vincent?" "Vincent Hartwell." Lily watched recognition flash across Ben's face. "He was Daddy Jake's older brother. After Mommy died, he said I was a burden. He said he never wanted me in the first place. He took all of Mommy's things and told me to get out." Her small hands clenched in the blanket. "He said I should have died instead of her." The coffee mug in Ben's hand shattered against the floor. "Jake's brother," Ben said slowly, dangerously quiet. "Jake's brother did this to you?" Lily nodded, tears spilling over. "He was always mean. But after Mommy died, he got worse. He kept looking through her papers, getting angry, saying something about money, that Mommy stole what should have been his." Ben's fists clenched so hard his knuckles went white. Lily had seen that look before, on Vincent's face, right before he broke Mommy's favorite vase, right before he grabbed Lily's arm hard enough to leave bruises. But Ben didn't move toward her. He moved away, gripping the counter, breathing hard. Duke whimpered and pressed against Lily's leg. "Mr. Ben?" Lily whispered. "Are you mad at me?" "No." Ben's voice came out strangled. "Never at you. I'm mad at myself. Because I know what I should do. Call the authorities, let the system handle this. And I know what I want to do." He turned to face her, and Lily saw something fierce and protective burning in his eyes. "Keep you here, keep you safe. But wanting something doesn't make it right, doesn't make it legal." "Jake would want you to protect me," Lily said quietly. "Wouldn't he?" Ben closed his eyes. "Jake would want you to have a real home, parents who aren't broken, who don't wake up screaming at 3 a.m., who don't have to take pills just to get through the day. Jake would want you to try." The words came from neither of them. They both turned to see an elderly woman standing in the open doorway, leaning heavily on a cane. She wore a nurse's jacket over her cardigan, her white hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was weathered but kind, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Who the hell are you?" Ben demanded, instinctively stepping between the stranger and Lily. "Margaret Sullivan," the woman said calmly. "But folks call me Maggie. I'm from Golden Sunset Care, about 3 miles down the road. I'm a volunteer nurse there." She nodded toward Duke. "Heard the barking last night. Figured I'd check it out this morning, see if anyone needed help. We're fine. Ben said shortly. "You can go." But Maggie's eyes had locked on Duke's collar. She moved forward, surprisingly fast for her age, and knelt beside the puppy. Her weathered fingers traced the military tag. "K9 unit," she read aloud. Then her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Oh my God, this is Jake's dog." Lily sat up straight. "You knew my daddy too?" Maggie's hand flew to her mouth. She looked from Lily to Ben and back again, her eyes filling with tears. "Lily Hartwell," she whispered. "Grace's little girl. You look just like your mother." Her gaze shifted to Ben. "And you must be Benjamin Calloway. Jake talked about you constantly. His brother from another mother. He called you." Ben's face had gone pale again. "How do you know all this?" Maggie straightened slowly, her hand pressed to her heart as if holding something precious inside. "Because 20 years ago in a field hospital in Afghanistan," she said softly, "I held your friend Jake while he bled out. And he made me promise, made me swear, that if anything happened to him, I'd make sure his daughter knew he loved her." The cabin fell silent except for the sound of rain beginning to fall again outside. Maggie reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small metal box, dented and worn. "I've been carrying this for 6 years," she said, holding it out toward Lily. "Waiting for the day I'd find you, waiting to keep my promise." "What is it?" Lily whispered. Maggie's smile was sad and beautiful all at once. "It's everything your daddy wanted you to know." Maggie's hands trembled as she opened the small metal box. Inside, wrapped in plastic to protect it from time and moisture, was a letter written on military stationery, creased and stained but carefully preserved. "Jake gave this to me 2 days before the ambush," Maggie said, her voice thick with memory. "He had a feeling. Soldiers always know, somehow, when their time is coming." She looked at Ben. "He made me promise I'd find Grace. Find his baby girl. Make sure she knew." Ben's throat worked, but no sound came out. Lily reached for the letter with shaking hands. The handwriting was messy, urgent, as if written in a hurry or under stress. At the top it simply said, "To my daughter, Lily Grace." "Would you read it to me?" Lily whispered, holding it out to Ben. "Please." Ben took the letter like it might shatter. He sat down heavily in the chair across from her, Duke settling at his feet. When he began reading, his voice cracked on every other word. "My dearest Lily Grace, my baby girl I'll never get to hold—" Ben stopped, swallowing hard. Maggie reached over and squeezed his shoulder. He continued, "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home. I'm so sorry. I wanted to teach you to ride a bike, to scare away your first boyfriend, to walk you down the aisle someday. I wanted everything fathers are supposed to have. But I want you to know something, baby girl. Every morning in this God-forsaken desert, I woke up thinking about you. Every night I fell asleep imagining your face. I never met you, but I loved you from the moment your mama told me you existed. I'm leaving you everything I have. It's not much, just some life insurance money and my service benefits. Your mama knows where to find it all. Use it for college. Use it to chase your dreams. Use it to build a life so beautiful that my sacrifice meant something. And Lily, if something happens to your mama too, if somehow you end up alone, find Benjamin Calloway. He's my brother in every way that matters. He's a good man, even if he doesn't believe it anymore. He'll protect you. He'll keep you safe. I'm also leaving you Duke. He's just a puppy now, but he's being trained as a search and rescue dog. He'll find you when you're lost. He'll guard you when you're scared. He's my gift to you, my eyes and my heart, watching over you when I can't. Be brave, baby girl. Be kind. Be strong. And know that even though I'm not there, I'm with you, always. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Your daddy, Captain Jake Hartwell." The silence that followed was profound. Lily clutched her mother's torn sweater, tears streaming down her face. Ben sat frozen, the letter shaking in his hands. "There's more," Maggie said softly. She reached into the box and pulled out a small velvet pouch. From it, she extracted a simple gold ring. "This was supposed to be your mother's engagement ring. Jake bought it 3 weeks before the ambush. He never got the chance to give it to her." Lily took the ring, holding it up to the morning light. Inside the band, tiny letters were engraved. G+J forever. "Grace and Jake," Lily whispered. "Mommy kept his last name. Even after she married Vincent. She said it was to honor my daddy." Ben's head snapped up. "Wait, your mother married Vincent but kept the name Hartwell?" "Vincent hated it," Lily said quietly. "He used to yell at Mommy about it, said she was disrespecting him. But Mommy wouldn't change it. She said it was the only piece of Daddy Jake she could give me." Maggie's face had grown troubled. "Tell me about Vincent, child. Tell me everything." So Lily did. She told them about how Vincent had pursued her mother relentlessly after Jake died. How Grace had been struggling, alone with a baby, drowning in grief and bills. How Vincent had seemed kind at first, helpful, supportive, offering stability. But after they got married, he changed, Lily said, her voice small. He got angry all the time. He said Mommy had tricked him, that she'd never really loved him, that she only wanted his money and his last name. She looked down at her lap. He said I was proof that Mommy never stopped loving a dead man more than him. Ben's jaw clenched so tight Lily could hear his teeth grinding. 2 weeks ago, Mommy's car went off the road, Lily continued. Police said it was an accident. But the night before I heard them fighting. Vincent was yelling about money, about how Mommy was hiding something from him, about how he deserved what was rightfully his. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. The next morning, Mommy was dead. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Dear God," Maggie breathed. "You don't think—" "I think," Ben said slowly, deliberately, "that we need to know a lot more about Vincent Hartwell, about Grace's death, and about what money Jake left behind that could make a man murder his own brother's widow." Duke growled, a low, menacing sound that seemed far too mature for a 4-month-old puppy. Lily looked at the ring in her palm, then at the letter, then at Ben and Maggie. "Daddy Jake said you'd protect me, Mr. Ben. He said you'd keep me safe." Ben met her eyes, and something in his expression shifted. The brokenness was still there, but underneath it, Lily saw the soldier, the SEAL, the man who'd survived 20 years of combat, the man who'd been Jake Hartwell's brother. "I will," Ben said quietly. "I swear to God, Lily, I will." Maggie pulled out her cell phone. "I need to make a call to someone who can help us figure out what really happened to Grace." She looked at Ben. "And we need to do it before Vincent figures out where Lily is." "How much time do we have?" Ben asked. Maggie's face was grim. "If Vincent is as dangerous as I think he is, not much. He'll have reported Lily missing by now. The police will be looking for her." "Then we move fast," Ben said, standing. The decisiveness in his voice was pure military command. "Maggie, make your calls. I'm going to secure this cabin, windows, doors, perimeter. If Vincent comes looking, he's going to find more than he bargained for." "What about me?" Lily asked. Ben knelt in front of her, his scarred hands gentle on her shoulders. "You stay with Duke. You stay safe. And you trust that your daddy knew what he was doing when he told you to find me." Lily threw her arms around his neck, and Ben, this broken, damaged warrior, held her like she was made of glass and steel all at once. Duke barked once, sharp and certain. Outside, the November rain continued to fall, washing away tracks, hiding secrets, counting down the hours until Vincent Hartwell came looking for what he believed was rightfully his. The Golden Sunset Care Facility sat at the edge of Maple Ridge like a forgotten promise, a two-story building with peeling yellow paint and a parking lot full of potholes. Ben's truck rumbled to a stop outside, and Lily pressed her face against the window, watching elderly residents in wheelchairs sitting on the covered porch despite the cold. "Why are we here?" Lily asked. "Because Maggie works here," Ben said, helping her out of the truck. Duke jumped down after them, staying close to Lily's leg. "And because she says there are people here who might remember your father, who might know things about Vincent that could help us." Inside, the facility smelled like disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. The lobby was worn but clean, decorated with construction paper turkeys and handwritten signs announcing, "Thanksgiving dinner, 10 days away. 10 days until Thanksgiving. 10 days until the deadline." Maggie had mentioned the day Golden Sunset would close its doors forever. Maggie met them at the front desk, her nurse's jacket freshly pressed. "Come on, I want you to meet some people." She led them down a hallway lined with resident rooms. Through open doors, Lily glimpsed neat beds and well-worn furniture, lives condensed into 12 by 12 spaces. Some rooms had visitors, middle-aged children sitting awkwardly, checking their phones. Most rooms were empty of everyone except their elderly occupants. 60 residents, Maggie said quietly, seeing Lily's expression. "Most of them have family. Most of those families are too busy to visit." Her voice carried no judgment, only sadness. "Old age ain't for sissies, child. But loneliness, that's the real killer." They entered a large common room where a dozen elderly residents sat scattered around, some watching television, others playing cards, a few simply staring out the windows at nothing. "Everyone," Maggie called out, her voice warm, "I want you to meet someone special. This is Lily Hartwell. And that's her puppy, Duke." The change was immediate. Faces that had been blank with boredom suddenly lit up. A woman in a wheelchair rolled forward eagerly. An old man with a walker began making his way over, moving with surprising speed. "A puppy!" the woman exclaimed. "Oh, we haven't had a puppy here in ages." Duke, as if sensing he had an audience, sat perfectly still and let the residents surround him. His tail wagged gently as weathered hands reached out to pet him. "Everyone, Lily has something important to tell you," Maggie said. "About her father, about Captain Jake Hartwell." An elderly man with close-cropped white hair and ramrod-straight posture suddenly stood from his chair across the room. "Hartwell? Captain Jake Hartwell?" "Yes, sir," Ben said, his military training automatically adding the honorific. "Did you know him?" The man moved forward with the careful precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime in uniform. "Master Sergeant George Patterson, United States Air Force, retired. And yes, I knew Jake Hartwell. Met him at a VA benefit 3 years before he deployed to Afghanistan." His sharp eyes swept over Ben. "Navy SEAL?" "Was," Ben said. "Once a SEAL, always a SEAL, son." George's gaze dropped to Lily. "This is Jake's little girl? The one he couldn't stop talking about?" Lily nodded, suddenly shy. George's stern expression crumbled. He knelt slowly, his knees creaking, and took Lily's small hand in his weathered one. "Your daddy was a fine man, a fine soldier. He showed me your ultrasound picture, carried it in his wallet everywhere, said you were going to change the world." "He did?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "He did." George stood back up, wiping at his eyes without shame. "What brings you here, child? And why do I get the feeling this isn't a social call?" Maggie pulled out Jake's letter. Jake left Lily money, life insurance, service benefits. At least $200,000, Lily's stepfather, Jake's brother Vincent, claims that money is rightfully his. Like hell it is, snapped an elderly woman with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back in a bun. I'm Ruth Mackenzie, buried 3 husbands, God rest their souls. I know a greedy vulture when I hear about one. She fixed Lily with a penetrating stare. This Vincent character, he treating you right, honey? Lily looked at the floor. He told me to leave, said I wasn't his problem. The temperature in the room dropped. Every elderly face hardened. That son of a... George caught himself. That's a coward's move, abandoning a 6-year-old child. It gets worse, Ben said. He explained about Grace's death, about the suspicious circumstances, about Vincent's rage over the money. We can't prove anything yet, but Lily's scared. And I don't blame her. An old man in a wheelchair rolled forward, thin as a rail with hands that shook from Parkinson's, but eyes that were razor-sharp. Harold Brennan, retired judge, 30 years on the bench. He studied Ben carefully. You planning to protect this child? Yes, sir. You got legal standing, custody papers? Anything that would hold up in court? Ben's jaw tightened. No, sir. Then you're in trouble. Because if Vincent reports her missing, and he will if he hasn't already, the law's on his side. He's the legal guardian. You're just a stranger. Harold's expression softened. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's the law. There has to be something we can do, Maggie insisted. There is, said a woman's voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A tired-looking woman in a rumpled suit stood there, a clipboard in her hand, and exhaustion written across her features. She was Asian American, maybe 45, with the kind of face that had once been beautiful before stress and overwork carved lines into it. Lisa Chen, she introduced herself. Department of Child and Family Services. I got a call about 20 minutes ago. Missing child, 6 years old, last name Hartwell. Her eyes found Lily. That would be you. Ben stepped in front of Lily instinctively. She's safe here. Is she? Lisa's voice wasn't unkind, just exhausted. Because, according to my file, her legal guardian, Vincent Hartwell, reported her missing 3 days ago. He claims she ran away. He's very worried. The sarcasm in her voice was subtle but unmistakable. He's also filed for emergency custody of her late mother's estate. All very by the book, very proper. He threw her out, Ben said flatly. Told a 6-year-old to get out of the house. Can you prove that? Do you have witnesses? Documentation? Lisa waited, and when no one answered, she sighed. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've got 200 active cases, 200 children who need help, and exactly 0 hours in the day to help them all properly. She looked at Lily, and something in her expression cracked. I know what a scared child looks like. I know what abuse looks like. But knowing and proving are 2 different things. So what happens now? Maggie asked. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. By the book? I take Lily into protective custody while we investigate, which means foster care while Vincent's claim is processed, which could take months, maybe years. She looked around the room at all the elderly faces watching her. But I'll tell you something. My mother's in a place like this. I haven't visited her in 6 months because I'm too damn busy saving other people's children. Her voice broke slightly. Sometimes I wonder if following the rules is the same as doing what's right. It's not, Harold said quietly. Take it from a judge. The law is supposed to serve justice, but sometimes justice requires bending the law. Lisa met his eyes. Are you suggesting I falsify a report? I'm suggesting, Harold said carefully, that your investigation might take a few extra days, that you might need to thoroughly vet Vincent Hartwell's claims before removing a child from a safe environment. He glanced at Ben. especially when that child is in the care of a decorated Navy SEAL who was best friends with her deceased father. Lisa's lips twitched, almost a smile. That would require me to believe Mr. Calloway here is a suitable temporary guardian. I'm not, Ben said honestly. I've got PTSD, nightmares. The VA has me on a watch list. But you saved her life, Maggie interjected. You're keeping her safe when no one else would. Lisa looked at Lily, who had Duke pressed against her side. Honey, do you feel safe with Mr. Ben? Lily nodded without hesitation. He knew my daddy. He promised to protect me. And has he hurt you? Scared you? Made you feel unsafe in any way? No, ma'am. He makes me pancakes, even when they're burnt. Despite everything, several people in the room chuckled. Lisa closed her eyes briefly, making a decision that could cost her career. When she opened them again, something had shifted. I need 72 hours, she said. 72 hours to investigate Vincent Hartwell thoroughly, to verify his claims, to ensure that placing Lily in his care is in her best interests. She looked at Ben hard. Can you keep her safe for 72 hours? Yes, ma'am. And you? Lisa turned to Maggie. Can you vouch for him? With my life, Maggie said firmly. Lisa made a note on her clipboard. Then, officially, I haven't found Lily Hartwell yet. My search continues. But Mr. Calloway? Her voice turned steel. If anything happens to that child, if Vincent finds her, I will personally make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. Clear? Crystal, ma'am. Lisa nodded once and turned to leave. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, I hope you nail that bastard. Kids deserve better than vultures picking over their parents' graves. Then she was gone, leaving silence in her wake. George was the first to speak. 72 hours, that's not much time. Then we better not waste it, Harold said. Time to figure out what really happened to Grace Hartwell. The residents of Golden Sunset transformed from bored retirees into a tactical operations team with surprising speed. Harold wheeled himself to a corner table and spread out papers, old legal pads he'd commandeered from the nurses' station. George stood by a whiteboard someone had dragged in from the activities room, marker in hand like he was planning a military operation, which Ben supposed he was. First things first, Harold said, adjusting his reading glasses. We need to establish timeline and motive. Grace died 2 weeks ago. Lily, when exactly did your mother's accident happen? Lily sat in a chair that was too big for her, Duke's head resting in her lap. November 7th, Wednesday. It was raining. And Vincent kicked you out when? 3 days later, Saturday. Lily's voice was small. He went through all of Mommy's papers that morning. Then he started yelling, said I needed to leave. That he had things to take care of. George wrote on the whiteboard, Nov 7, Grace dies. Nov 10, Lily expelled. Nov 12, Vincent reports missing child. 2 days between kicking her out and reporting her missing, Ruth observed. She'd pulled up a chair, her knitting abandoned. That's a man who wanted her gone but needed to look concerned. What was he looking for in those papers? Ben asked Lily. I don't know, but he found something. A bank envelope. He got really quiet when he saw it, then really angry. He called someone on the phone, said, she hid it. That manipulative... Lily stopped, her cheeks flushing. He used a bad word about Mommy. Did you see what was in the envelope? Harold pressed gently. Lily shook her head. But there were numbers. Bank numbers, maybe. And Mommy's name. Maggie had been quiet, standing by the window. Now she turned. Jake's life insurance. $200,000. Grace would have been the beneficiary with Lily as the secondary. If Vincent thought that money should have been his as Jake's brother. She trailed off, the implication hanging heavy. But why would he think that? Ben demanded. Jake left everything to Grace and Lily in his will. Military benefits are ironclad. They go where the soldier designates. Unless, Harold said slowly, Vincent could prove the will was invalid, or that Jake wasn't in his right mind when he wrote it, or, his eyes narrowed, that Lily isn't actually Jake's daughter. The room went dead silent. That's insane, Ben said. Of course she's Jake's daughter. Is there a birth certificate? Harold asked. DNA test? Anything that proves paternity? Lily's eyes filled with tears. Mommy said Daddy Jake loved me. She said he wanted me. We know that, honey, Maggie said quickly, moving to kneel beside her. But legally, if there's no paternity test, then Vincent could challenge it, Harold finished grimly. Could claim Grace lied about the father. Could argue that any money left for Jake's daughter doesn't apply if Lily isn't biologically his. Ben's hands clenched into fists. That son of a... Jake loved that little girl. He wrote her letters. He left her everything he had. Love doesn't hold up in probate court, Harold said. Evidence does. A new voice spoke from the doorway, elderly but firm. Then perhaps you need better evidence. Everyone turned. A tiny woman stood there, barely 5 feet tall, with snow-white hair and skin like weathered parchment. She wore a faded house dress and slippers, and her hands shook with age, but her dark eyes were sharp as obsidian. Mrs. Nakamura, Maggie said with obvious respect. We didn't mean to disturb you. You didn't. The old woman shuffled into the room with careful steps. I heard everything. These walls are thin, and my hearing is still excellent. She studied Lily with an intensity that made the little girl shrink back. You look like your mother. Grace was a beautiful woman, sad but beautiful. You knew my mommy? Lily whispered. She came here once a month for the past 2 years. Volunteer work, reading to residents, helping serve meals. Mrs. Nakamura's voice was soft but clear. She never talked much about her life. But once, after her husband Vincent screamed at her on the phone in the parking lot, she sat with me and cried. Ben leaned forward. What did she say? She said she'd made a terrible mistake, that she'd married the wrong brother, that Vincent was consumed with jealousy, jealous of Jake, jealous of Lily, jealous of a dead man who'd been everything Vincent wasn't. Mrs. Nakamura paused. She said Vincent blamed her for Jake's death, said if she hadn't gotten pregnant, Jake never would have felt obligated to do that last tour. Never would have tried so hard to earn money for his family. That's twisted, Ruth breathed. Vincent is twisted, Mrs. Nakamura said simply. Grace told me he'd been looking for Jake's insurance papers, that he believed the money was his by right, that he'd taken care of Grace and Lily when Jake couldn't, so he deserved compensation. Her gaze fixed on Harold. She was scared. She asked me what would happen to Lily if something happened to her. What did you tell her? Harold asked. I told her to get a lawyer, to update her will, to make sure Lily was protected. Mrs. Nakamura's voice cracked. I told her to leave Vincent. She said she would. She promised me she would right after Thanksgiving. She just needed a few more weeks to get her affairs in order. She never got those weeks, Maggie said quietly. Mrs. Nakamura shook her head. 2 days after our conversation, Grace was dead. The police called it an accident. But I remember what she said. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Vincent knows about the money now. The room exploded. That's proof, George exclaimed. That's hearsay, Harold countered. It won't hold up in court without corroboration. But it gives us direction, Ben said, his voice taking on the commanding tone of a SEAL team leader. We need to look at Grace's accident. Really look at it. Police reports, accident reconstruction, witnesses. I can help with that, a new voice said. Sheriff Tom Johnson stood in the doorway, his uniform crisp, his expression troubled. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and a weathered face that spoke of years serving Maple Ridge's small community. "Sheriff," Maggie said carefully, "how long have you been listening?" "Long enough." Johnson entered the room, his hand resting on his belt, not threatening, just habit. "Long enough to know that I should have looked harder at Grace Hartwell's accident. Long enough to know that sometimes we small-town cops don't ask enough questions when the answers might be uncomfortable." "You investigated her death?" Ben asked. "Responded to the scene. Single vehicle accident on Route 42 just past the bridge. Car went off the road, hit a tree. Grace died on impact." Johnson's jaw tightened. "Vincent was very helpful, very cooperative. Told us Grace had been drinking. We found an empty whiskey bottle in the car. Case closed." "Except," Harold prompted. "Except Grace Hartwell attended AA meetings every Tuesday for 5 years. Been sober since Lily was born. I knew that because my wife goes to the same meetings." Johnson pulled out a small notepad. "And except the accident happened on a straight stretch of road on a clear day with no other vehicles involved. And except Grace's car had been serviced just the week before, passed inspection with flying colors." "Brakes?" Ben asked sharply. "Mechanic said they were perfect." Johnson flipped through his notes. "But we never did a full forensic workup. No reason to. Seemed like a straightforward drunk driving accident." "Who found the whiskey bottle?" Harold asked. Johnson's face darkened. "Vincent. He arrived at the scene before the ambulance. Said he'd been following his wife, worried about her drinking." "Convenient," Ruth muttered. "Very convenient," Johnson agreed. "And now I'm hearing that Vincent had motive. 200,000 reasons to want his wife dead." He looked at Ben. "You were a SEAL. You know what a staged accident looks like?" "Yes, sir. And this has all the hallmarks." "Then we reopen the investigation. Full forensic review of the vehicle, toxicology retest, everything." Johnson's expression hardened. "If Vincent Hartwell killed his wife, he's going to answer for it." "That'll take time," Harold warned. "Time Lily doesn't have. Vincent's her legal guardian." "He can claim her any time." "Not if he's under investigation for murder," Johnson countered. "You need evidence for that," George pointed out. "Real evidence, not just suspicion." Duke, who'd been quiet throughout the discussion, suddenly stood. His ears pricked forward, his body going rigid. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Ben's hand went to his hip, muscle memory reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "What is it, boy?" Lily whispered. Duke moved to the window, staring out at the parking lot. His growl deepened. Ben crossed to look out. In the parking lot, a black Mercedes had just pulled in. The driver's side door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, with Jake's same broad shoulders, but a face twisted by bitterness and rage. "That's Vincent," Lily breathed, pressing herself against Maggie. "That's him." Vincent Hartwell stood in the parking lot, staring up at the building. Even from a distance, Ben could see the cold calculation in his eyes. "How did he find us?" Ruth demanded. "Doesn't matter," Ben said, his voice dropping into combat mode. "What matters is he's here, and we're not giving him Lily." Vincent started walking toward the entrance. Sheriff Johnson's hand moved to his service weapon. "Everyone stay calm. I'll handle this." But Ben was already moving, placing himself between the door and Lily. Duke took position beside him, teeth bared, every muscle coiled. George grabbed his walker and positioned himself at another angle. Harold wheeled his chair to block a different approach. Ruth and Mrs. Nakamura flanked Maggie and Lily, a room full of elderly residents and one broken seal, forming a defensive perimeter around a 6-year-old girl and her puppy. "Come and get her," Ben said quietly, his eyes never leaving the door. "We'll be right here waiting." The front door opened, and Vincent Hartwell walked into a room full of people who knew exactly what he'd done. Vincent Hartwell didn't look like a monster. That was the first thing Lily noticed as he stepped into the common room. He looked like someone's uncle, dressed in an expensive suit, hair neatly combed, a practiced smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. "There you are, Lily," Vincent said, his voice dripping with false relief. "Thank God. I've been so worried." Sheriff Johnson moved between Vincent and the group. "Mr. Hartwell, I'm surprised to see you here. I got a tip that my stepdaughter might be in this area." Vincent's eyes swept the room, calculating, assessing. They lingered on Ben with obvious recognition. "Benjamin Calloway, Jake's friend. How appropriate. You know me?" Ben's voice was flat, dangerous. "Jake talked about you, his brother, the one who survived when everyone else died." Vincent's smile sharpened. Must be hard living with that kind of guilt. Ben's jaw clenched, but he didn't move. Duke growled louder. "Mr. Hartwell," Sheriff Johnson interrupted, "we need to have a conversation about your wife's accident." "My late wife." Vincent's expression shifted to practiced grief. "A tragedy. Grace struggled with alcoholism, you know. I tried to help her, but—" He shook his head sadly. "Some demons are too strong." "Grace was sober," Mrs. Nakamura said sharply. 5 years sober. I knew her." Vincent turned his cold gaze on the elderly Japanese woman. "And you are?" "Someone who knows a liar when she sees one." Mrs. Nakamura's voice didn't waver despite her frail appearance. "Grace told me what you were, what you wanted. An old woman's fantasies." Vincent dismissed her with a wave. "Sheriff, I'm here to collect my stepdaughter. I'm her legal guardian. Whatever these people have told you about me is irrelevant." "Actually," Harold spoke up, wheeling forward, "it's very relevant. I'm retired Judge Harold Brennan. I've been reviewing your case, Mr. Hartwell. Your petition for custody of Grace's estate raises some interesting questions." Vincent's mask slipped for just a moment. A flash of rage quickly covered. "I'm simply ensuring my late brother's daughter is provided for." "Your late brother who you refused to acknowledge for 15 years? George interjected. "I knew Jake Hartwell. He talked about you, about how you blamed him for everything wrong in your life. You don't know anything about my relationship with my brother?" Vincent's voice rose slightly. "I know Jake saved my life," Ben said quietly. "I know he left everything he had to his daughter. I know you have no claim to that money, and I know Grace was afraid of you." "Prove it." Vincent's smile returned, colder now. "Prove any of it. Otherwise, you're just a PTSD-addled veteran with delusions holding a child who isn't yours." He turned to Sheriff Johnson. "I want my stepdaughter returned to me immediately, or I'll have the FBI here for kidnapping charges." "The child came to us voluntarily," Maggie said firmly. "She ran away because you told her to leave. Lily's 6 years old. She's confused, traumatized by her mother's death. She doesn't know what she's saying." Vincent's voice took on a patronizing tone. "Children make up stories when they're scared." "I'm not making it up." Lily's voice rang out, clear and strong despite her fear. She stepped out from behind Maggie, Duke immediately at her side. "You told me to get out. You said I wasn't your problem. You said—" Her voice broke. "You said I should have died instead of Mommy." The room went silent. Vincent's face contorted, just for a second, into pure hatred before smoothing back into false concern. "Lily, sweetheart, you're confused. The grief has affected your memory. I would never say such things." "But you did." Lily's hands were shaking, but she kept talking. "And you yelled at Mommy the night before she died. About money. About Daddy Jake's money. You said Mommy stole what was yours." "That's enough." Vincent took a step forward. Duke lunged, teeth snapping. Vincent stumbled back. "Control that animal," Vincent shouted. "He's protecting his person," George said. "That's what military working dogs do. Protect their handlers from threats." I'm not a threat. I'm her guardian. Are you? Harold's voice was steel. Because from where I sit, you look like a man who murdered his wife for insurance money and tried to abandon her daughter when she became inconvenient. Vincent's composure finally cracked completely. You have no proof. Grace was drunk. She crashed her car. It was an accident. Grace didn't drink, Sheriff Johnson said. We're reopening the investigation. Full forensics, toxicology, everything. You can't do that. The case is closed. I just reopened it. Johnson's hand moved to his cuffs. And I'm starting with you. Mr. Hartwell, I need you to come down to the station for questioning. On what grounds? Suspicion of murder. Vincent laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. This is insane. You're listening to a senile old woman and a traumatized child and a man with PTSD. None of them are credible witnesses. But I am. Lisa Chen stood in the doorway, her phone in her hand. And I've been recording this entire conversation, including the part where you just confirmed you knew about Jake's insurance money. The money that wasn't public information. The money only Grace and her lawyer knew about. Vincent's face went white. How did you know about that money, Mr. Hartwell? Lisa asked, her voice professional but with an edge. How did you know the exact amount unless you'd been going through Grace's private documents? Documents she kept hidden from you? Vincent's mouth opened and closed. She told me. Grace told Mrs. Nakamura that you didn't know, Lisa continued, that she'd hidden the papers from you. So how did you find out? And why did you find out the day before she died? The trap closed around Vincent like a noose. This is entrapment, Vincent snarled. This is called building a case, Sheriff Johnson said. Now, are you coming voluntarily, or do I need to arrest you? Vincent's eyes darted around the room, at the sheriff, at Ben's coiled readiness, at the elderly residents blocking every exit, at Duke's bared teeth. He was calculating, Lily realized, trying to find a way out. I want a lawyer, Vincent said finally. Smart choice. Johnson pulled out his handcuffs. Turn around. But Vincent wasn't done. His eyes found Lily, and in them she saw something that made her blood run cold. Not love, not even hatred, just cold calculation. You think you've won? Vincent said softly. You think proving I killed Grace changes anything? I'm still her legal guardian. I'm still Jake's brother. That money is still mine by right. Jake owed me for years of living in his shadow. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried. And little Lily? She's not even Jake's daughter. Not really. Not by blood. The words hit like a physical blow. What? Lily whispered. Vincent's smile was cruel. Your mother had a secret, little girl. One she took to her grave. Jake wasn't your biological father. I am. The room erupted in chaos. Ben lunged forward, but Sheriff Johnson grabbed him. Maggie pulled Lily close as the little girl's world shattered around her. You're lying, Ben snarled. Am I? Ask for a DNA test. Go ahead, see what it tells you. Vincent's laugh was bitter. Grace slept with me one night before she went running back to my perfect little brother. She never told Jake. Never told anyone. But I knew. I always knew. That doesn't make you her father, Harold said firmly. Biology isn't parenthood. But it makes me her legal next of kin, Vincent countered. It makes me entitled to that money. All of it. Because if she's my daughter, then Jake's will is invalid. He left everything to his daughter, but she's not his daughter. She's mine. Lily couldn't breathe. The room spun around her. Daddy Jake wasn't her real daddy? Vincent was? No, she whispered. No, no, no. Duke pressed against her legs, whining. Sheriff, Vincent said, his voice calm again. I'll come to the station. I'll answer your questions about Grace's death, but in return, I want a DNA test. I want proof that Lily is my biological daughter. And when that proof comes back, because it will, I want what's rightfully mine." Sheriff Johnson's face was stone. "We'll do the test, and if you're telling the truth, we'll sort out the legal implications. But until then, you're still under investigation for murder." "Fair enough." Vincent held out his wrists for the cuffs, his smile never wavering. "I can wait. After all, I've been waiting my whole life to step out of Jake's shadow. A few more days won't matter." As Sheriff Johnson led Vincent out, the man's parting words drifted back. "See you soon, daughter." Lily stood frozen, Duke pressed against her, surrounded by people who loved her. But all she could hear was Vincent's voice echoing in her head. Not Jake's daughter, Vincent's daughter, the daughter of the man who might have killed her mother. And somewhere in heaven, she wondered if Jake Hartwell, the man who'd loved her before she was born, who'd written her letters, who'd left her everything, was as heartbroken as she was. Sometimes the family we're born into isn't the family that saves us. It's the strangers who choose to stay when everyone else walks away. In a world where nursing homes sit half-empty on visiting days, where adult children are too busy to call, where loneliness kills more surely than disease, we forget that love isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about a 6-year-old girl who loses everything, teaching a room full of forgotten souls that they still matter. It's about a broken veteran finding purpose in protecting one small life. It's about neighbors becoming family when family becomes strangers. Jake Hartwell knew this truth when he wrote that letter to a daughter he'd never meet. That the deepest bonds aren't made in biology labs. They're forged in sacrifice, in loyalty, in the simple act of choosing someone every single day. This Thanksgiving, while families gather and nursing home phones stay silent, remember the most profound question isn't who shares your DNA, but who would stand between you and danger? Who would love you when loving you costs everything? What's the difference between family and relatives in your life? Have you ever been saved by someone who owed you nothing? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.